Hi there, everybody, and welcome into the Sanity podcast. I'm Dave Briggs here with Allison Camerata, and a whole lot of weed, legal marijuana that you can buy at liquor stores all around the country. And you, my friend, a bit of a THC drink skeptic.
Indeed, but we're about to get really stoned here on the podcast, if you have anything to do with it. This is just your personal stash that you've brought.
This is what I carry around in my car on a regular basis, quite frankly.
That's legal.
If we drank all that, this would be a long night. In particular, if you went for this one here.
That's the high test.
I don't recommend swigging.
Starting with that.
Yeah, I'm going to give you this.
A baby one.
And then we're going to bring in the man who I call the OG of THC drinks. He is, I think, the foremost knowledgeable person in this industry. Ben Carson is the CEO of Vertosa.
Is it Ben Carson?
Did I say Ben Carson?
Yes, but okay. I mean, I also like it. Maybe Ben Carson is joining us.
Because I called Jen Ashton. All right, we're going to bring in now the OG of THC drinks, Ben Larson, the CEO of Vertosa, who has built many of the brands on this table and that you see at stores. Ben, great to have you here. Allison has so many questions because I'm kind of knee deep in this industry. She's very curious about it.
I'm THC curious. Hi, Ben. Thanks for joining
Allison,
us.
Nice to meet you. Dave, good to see you again. It's great to be here. And yeah, you have a fine selection there. That you could do some damage.
I'm not kidding. I mean, this is truly what Dave shows up at my house with. I mean, he's truly a connoisseur. I consider him my THC sommelier, basically. So he has me starting with this little baby one called Happy. Oh, I like this. It's glow. So you know this one?
I do know that.
He knows them all.
Okay. What am I going to feel if I drink this whole can? That's my first question. Because basically, as a, I've never liked being high. I don't like pot. I've never really loved it. I mean, back in the OG pot days, I do like alcohol, and I feel like I can titrate that. I can, modulate how much I often, not sometimes I can't.
Sure.
But is this as easy to modulate, and what is the sensation I'm about to have?
Yeah, you're the way you're kind of contextualizing your experience with cannabis or weed, pot, whatever you want to call it, was kind of the genesis of the beverage movement. It does enable you to start to feel lower doses faster. You're able to titrate the experience a little bit better. And so what will you feel? It's not going to feel exactly like alcohol. It's not intended to. But what we like to say in the category is maybe a little bit lightly lifted. And so you start to feel it and you get to, moderate what you consume.
Lightly lifted. I like that.
And Ben,
so many levels.
She represents the consumer that is unaware of these drinks that represent the greatest growth opportunity in a category that is already exploding because, Ben, so many people are finding reasons they need to drink less alcohol, but they still want to have a good time.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I grew up, when I say grow up, I mean college and later, drinking a fair amount of alcohol. And I think what we've trained ourselves to do over the years was just apply alcohol like a blunt hammer to everything. It's like every ailment, like you're stressed, oh, have a drink. It's like you want to socialize, have a drink. And what we've realized with the advent of products like this is that maybe we're just using the wrong tool and that we don't always, need alcohol to address those needs. And it turns out that cannabis can address a lot of needs and people are loving that. They're also loving the fact that they're not waking up with hangovers or regrets. It's like, I look back on my life and there's a lot of conversations or actions I wish I hadn't had or taken.
Oh, God.
Go on. Tell us more about it.
Give us one.
It's all right.
Give
I'm
us
sure
one.
You can look it up in the news somewhere.
I'll give you one. Come on, give me one.
I mean, look, we all
I'll start. I'll start.
You,
I'll make it easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
By starting. I remember my first real experience with tequila. I was in high school, and I drank, it was that Cuervo crap. Like, there's some good Cuervo, not the original. And I ended up getting naked at my own party, and I am not that proud a man. I'm not. And it was not a good moment for me in my dating life.
Wow, Dave. Wow. And how long did it take you to live that down?
Oh, I think I'm still living in town.
Yeah.
I have my 30-year reunion coming up, and I may get reminded of that night. All right, who's going next? One of you, don't you guys leave
Look,
me hanging.
I'm not too dissimilar. I had a knack for earning nicknames, and those nicknames were typically superheroes. So one was Spider-Man, another one was
Oh.
Batman. Let's just say
Uh-huh.
Batman happened after a toga party where I was wearing a cape instead of a toga. So not too dissimilar to you, Dave.
But I mean, were you also naked while wearing the cape? I feel like there's
plead
a
the fifth,
difference.
okay?
Wow.
You got to give us one.
I'm sorry, I don't get naked at a
There had to be a
party.
regret. There had to be a morning you woke up and you got, oh my God, what did I do?
Oh, okay, got it. I have a more recent one.
Oh.
I drank so much recently. I mean, this is like 5 years ago that it caught up with me because I was drinking wine all day and I was actually congratulating myself on how I wasn't getting drunk. In my head, I was like, look at how much I can consume. I'm not getting drunk because it was like a beautiful kind of daytime picnic. And then we decided to go out to dinner. So it was day drinking and I was doing great and very proud of myself. Then we go out to dinner and I'm like, you know what would be great? A Negroni. And don't drink a Negroni after you've been drinking, day drinking all day. And as my husband said, so it was 3 couples. As my husband said, I lost my core competency of speaking. I couldn't talk.
Just couldn't speak.
Yeah.
Well, but it didn't stop me. I was speaking a lot, but I wasn't pronouncing things or making any sense. I was telling a story. And I remember in my head, I know that I'm not pronouncing words accurately right now, but I'm not going to let that get in the way of finishing my story. I remember that logic. And one of the other husbands said that he had to leave for a second. He came back. He said it was a crime scene at the table. I was still telling the story. His wife was asleep at the table. Other people were just like, blah. That was, yeah. So that's the
look,
one where I'm
like
not proud.
These stories are funny, right? And we can reflect back on them and laugh. And that's not always the case, right? And there's many relationships that have been strained due to alcohol. There's a lot of fights that have been started, be it physical or emotional. And we do look back on those with a great deal of regret. And so I'm not trying to demonize alcohol, but I will say that you're going to be hard pressed to find those instances when you're consuming these products that are right here in front of you.
That's really interesting. Ben. That does put it in a different light. So people are, I mean, because there is aggressiveness, obviously. With
More than 75% of domestic abuse cases are linked to alcohol. 75%.
And so because you're a
How many
connoisseur,
people are angry after drinking too many weed drinks, Ben?
I mean, look, the best anecdote that I can tell you, and this isn't just the drinks, this is cannabis as a whole, but I remember the first time I went to an industry event in Las Vegas, and I heard about this huge party that was happening up in this top floor suite, and I show up, and there's a security guard just quietly sitting near the door, and he's like, he didn't check a list, he didn't do anything, he's like, oh, you can go in, and I go in, and the place is packed, music was going, there was smoke everywhere, no security, no fights, just everyone having a great time. And when the party was over, everyone just got up and left. And I was just like, excuse me, like what was going on? Like if this was a typical Las Vegas rager, like it would just be a much different outcome. I hate to say it. You know, I have a lot of friends in the alcohol industry. This category is cozying up with the alcohol industry because of the distribution channels, the retail channels. But yeah, it's just a completely different experience. And
yeah, Mike Tyson's tiger would be in the bathroom. What brought you to the industry? How do you quantify how it's grown in recent years?
Oh my goodness. So look, I got into the cannabis industry back in 2015. I had been in the tech sector, investing in early stage startup companies, and I saw this whole industry starting up. And not too long after that, we saw beverages really start to emerge, and there was big investment coming into the space. And what I realized is just the products weren't that good. They didn't taste as good as the ones in your hands today. And so there was a lot of work to be done. And that's what our company focuses on, is improving the quality of those products, making sure that the active ingredient is there, but that it's easy to build around and consistent and provides a consistent experience that leaves the consumer wanting to return to the product. That wasn't always the case with, infused pot brownies, so to speak. You never knew what you're going to get. You never knew when it was going to hit, and it was probably always too much. And so, or nothing at all. It was like binary. It's like, oh, I didn't feel anything, or oh my goodness, I went into outer space for 8 hours. That's not going to happen with these beverages. You're talking about like 5 or 10 milligrams per unit, and you're consuming it over a period of time. You're feeling it before it's over, and it's just a much safer way to consume these products.
Gosh, yeah, Ben. I mean, it's so funny that you say that because one of the things that I always hated about pot, and the reason I didn't like ever smoking it, was because it was a bad bet. It was a bad bet. You didn't know at any given moment if you were going to be so baked that you couldn't function and had to eat a pepperoni pizza right then and there, or if you were you have to,
Just have to.
or if it was just going to be nothing. And so you're saying that this is more scientific of an experience.
I mean, it technically is. Like we have done very technical studies. We call them pharmacokinetic studies, where you're actually measuring the blood absorption into the stream, and we have proven that it's much faster and much more consistent than other oil-based or flour-based products. All this to say, though, what we're recognizing is just it's filling that void that people are looking for. Like, the non-alc movement is huge, but people aren't necessarily searching for sobriety. They just don't want alcohol. And so we're like reinserting something fun, again, that takes away a lot of the detractors that alcohol presents. And so, it's like, it's just taking over by wildfire, like in places where you least expect it. Dave mentioned these being sold all around the U.S. That is largely happening in a lot of red states where cannabis is still illegal. You're seeing it pop up in grocery stores and in liquor stores through the
How does that loophole work? How does that loophole work? If pot is illegal, how are these sold in grocery stores?
Yeah, great question. So hemp, you're familiar with hemp? Rope knot.
My dresses.
Yeah. So turns out hemp is cannabis. It's just a different breed of cannabis where the levels of cannabinoids are in different ratios. And so the way that the U.S. defined cannabis years and years ago were that if it has less than 0.3% THC in the plant at a given time before harvest, then it is therefore defined as hemp, right? And so over years, these plants have been bred, but at the end of the day, they still have the same constituents as cannabis. And so if you extract from the hemp plant, then you can distill down into CBD, which a lot of people are familiar with. It's a non-psychoactive cannabinoid. It has a lot of great healing powers. So does THC, by the way. It just happens to be psychoactive. But also in that soup of cannabinoids that you pull off of the plant is THC. And so in those beverages, what you have is the leftovers of CBD extraction. And it's just distilled further, where you're removing out all the plant materials and what have you. And so that is largely what has created this category. And because it's come from that source, it's a completely different rule set. And then this is, the beauty of our federal government, right? There's just these very bifurcated law sets that govern cannabis, which is a Schedule I drug at the federal level, but legalized by certain states. And then you have this federally legal nationwide hemp supply chain.
And there are 50 different sets of laws and regulations, which is making this industry very difficult for the businesses to grow. But Ben, some of the drinks I'm holding a 3 milligram house plant made by Seth Rogen and company. And here is Daisy's, which is a 10 milligram drink. What is your advice to someone who has not touched a hemp D9 THC drink? Where should they start and how should they go about it so they don't have a bad experience?
Yeah. I mean, the classic saying in the industry is low and slow. Start low, go slow, right? And so the houseplant product is excellent. Cann is a famous for launching kind of this ultra low dose category. I think they're 2 milligrams of THC. It's a great starting place. And the cool thing about this category or this technology from our perspective is that even if you're a heavy consumer, you can still feel these light doses of product. So you still get a little something out of it. You might have to drink more to get a true experience out of it. But everyone can start with something in 3 to 5 milligrams.
All right,
Not
do you want my
myself.
hot take?
Yeah.
Okay, here's my hot take. It tastes a little bit like Fresca.
Fresca's delicious. So that might be the best thing you could say for me. I mean, I got cases of Fresca at home.
That's so disturbing.
Oh my God. Fresca's one of the best things. You don't like Fresca?
Fresca's a diet soda. Are you
Fresca is delicious.
right? But isn't it a diet soda?
Well, it's sugar-free, but it's not, well, it doesn't say diet soda.
It was a 1970s product, right?
Fresca, look, all I know is Fresca's freaking ridiculously good. You agree with me here, Ben?
I didn't know I poked the bear here, Ben.
You did.
I haven't had a Fresca in probably 2 decades, but
right.
I did
Me
have a
either.
squirt
2
recently,
days.
and I was like pleasantly surprised by this magical grapefruit soda.
Squirt is also good.
Yeah, that's good. But in any event, the reason I feel it's Fresca-esque is that it's not sweet like a soda. It has that it must have a grapefruity. I've told Dave before, it's herbally. I taste like a little herbiness, but he tries to tell me that it isn't in there, but that is what I taste.
This is the beauty of the beverage category, is that it's as versatile as you want it to be. Like, Dave, you could crack open that lolly for her and she would have a
What's
true
the lolly?
soda experience.
This
Or
is a
if you're more of a
grape
cocktail
soda.
person, Allison, you mentioned Negronis.
Yeah.
There's not a Negroni, but I do see a flyers there on the cocktail, and those flyers are great cocktail replacements.
Oh, really?
Oh, those are the spritzes. Those are a little bit different.
Those
are
are the spritzes.
Yeah.
But he does have like an old fashioned. They make basically an old
What?
fashioned.
I like all of these. This is a mango guava, but I'm enjoying. Okay, but anyway, so this is a blood orange ginger, allegedly, but I think it's just Fresca that I'm tasting. But here's my hot take. Here's my sensation. I'm feeling a little flushed, but maybe it's the heat in here. Like, do you feel a little like warmth, like a little
I
hot?
do not feel hot at all, and I am a sweater. So.
Ah.
Do you get high? Can you answer that question for us?
Do I personally
No,
get high, or do you get high
these-
off of these beverages?
Will these drinks get you high?
Absolutely, yeah.
And would you compare it to a gummy, to a joint, to a brownie, to a what?
I always say that it's its own kind of it's its own form factor, right? That slots in between inhalation and gummies. And the reason being is that the way that it gets absorbed into the bloodstream. And so because it's a liquid, it allows it to have more exposure over the soft tissues, get absorbed into the blood faster, and that's why you get that faster onset. And what that ends up doing is that you're experiencing the cannabinoids in different forms. And so we always talk about THC. So THC delta 9 is a cannabinoid. But as soon as you consume it, it starts to interact with the body. And so THC can be absorbed into the bloodstream and felt by the receptors, but it can also be converted in the body. And so there's a metabolite of THC, which is after it passes through the liver, which is called 11-hydroxy. And that actually gives a pretty distinct, different experience than THC itself. It's more...
Now,
yeah.
Hold on, man. Hold on a second. Why don't I get paranoid from this? Or do I? Or am I?
I've been sleepy with THC drinks. I've never been paranoid. Have you?
I can't say that I have, to be honest. And also, as a scientist, I can't say that you won't, right? And so it's like, I do say that paranoia typically comes with overconsumption. And we don't see too much overconsumption with the beverages because, again, you're able to meter your dose. And, you know, it's not like alcohol. Alcohol has this mechanism where, like, you finish one and you want another, and you're probably going to drink that second one faster than the first one, and so on and so forth. And then you drink a Negroni at the end of the night and start talking different languages.
And you can't talk.
Yeah.
And you can't talk. But alcohol has never made me paranoid. Pot has made me paranoid. You know, pot,
Right.
that's a byproduct of pot, but I'm not feeling that
whereas
way.
one is with these drinks, there's an off switch. Like I find myself drinking one, maybe two, and I'm like, it's not that I want to keep consuming it because it's a beverage. It's because I've reached the level of highness, so to speak, that I want. And so that has been a big revelation for me as a habitual drinker. Look, I mean, look at my desk right now. I drinks everywhere.
What's in that thermos?
Wouldn't you like to know? No, it's just
Yes.
water.
Can you give us a sense of the size and the growth of the industry and where you think it will go in the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah. So it was estimated last year that there's $390 million of beverages sold across the U.S., which is not huge, but it's substantial. It is hypothesized that this category could become 15% of alcohol. And with the size of alcohol it is today, that would equate to about a $39 billion market opportunity for this category. So simple math tells me that this category could 100x from where it is today over the next 10 years. And I say 10 years because that's about how long it took for seltzers to really peak. And so like seltzers kind of, while they started coming out in the early 2000s, they really started becoming big in 2010. And 2020 was about when seltzers peaked. And so if we were to draw a similar trajectory for this category, that would easily be happening in early 2030s.
Is that an unheard of type growth rate? I mean, Top 10 Liquors in Minnesota tells me they are already at 15% of their sales, and they've only been for sale there, correct me, 2 years or so?
2 years. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've talked to John Halper about this, also Steve Jabor at Specs, and the executives at Total Wine, and all of them say that this is the fastest growing category that they've ever seen.
Huh. And who's drinking that?
In beverage, period.
In beverage, period. Fastest growing beverage category ever.
Because everybody wants a new high. I mean, what's happening is that everybody is looking, like you said, people are trying to figure out if alcohol isn't the end all be all, and for a million reasons we think it's not. So what's the new high? And everybody's been looking for that forever.
And look at this. It's I don't want to get too preachy about it, but I just had a conversation with my wife this morning, and I didn't try to convert her. She naturally migrated to these beverages. She stopped drinking alcohol. It wasn't making her feel great. You know, she's 40 now, maybe a little bit more. And
I like that you're fudging your wife's. This shows me you're a great husband. You're fudging your wife's age. I love you already. Please continue.
But she woke up this morning. We had a deep conversation last night before bed, which doesn't always allow for like good sleep. And she drank a beverage and was able to go to sleep, have a good night rest. Not only that, but like woke up this morning and was like, everything's going to be okay. Where she knows herself enough to be like, had we had that conversation without the beverage, she would have been up all night and she would have been stressed, anxious, and would have felt like the world was crumbling this morning. And so,
yeah. And if you'd had alcohol before that conversation, it also could have gone differently, yeah. And you would have felt crappy in the morning.
And now I'm pleased to say there's one called Coffee Pot that can get you caffeinated in the morning and a little bit high as well.
Dave, you did a really great job with your selection of beverages. I'm really impressed.
I really did.
I'm a fan of that one because I think the caffeine actually counters at least the narrative that these things make you sleepy.
Tired and wired.
But I like the combination of like a Red Bull vodka, only without the hangover. So I think it's interesting where this is going to go. Who is drinking then? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to get back what Allison was saying about the paranoia. So there are some that have postulated that is the addition of certain cannabinoids and terpenes that really drive some of that paranoia. And so in like large quantities, all of it working together can do that, where other strains, so to speak, might not. And so what you're getting in these beverages is like just a highly distilled, often like THC, sometimes CBD, sometimes other cannabinoids. So THC and CBD together create a nice balanced effect where CBD helps modulate the THC a bit. Now, what you'll find in some of the products is the addition of other cannabinoids like CBG, CBC, THCV, and what people are experimenting with, and in some cases through product formulations, is how are these different formulations making people feel different? You know, is it going to drive consumers to buy one beverage and repeat those purchases over others? And is that being driven because of the experience? And I believe it is. Like we're trying to apply more science to this, do more what we call PD or pharmacodynamic studies, which is different than pharmacokinetic, that allows you to really observe the experience that people are having while they're consuming the products. So if you want to sign up for a study and just get high and have fun,
I feel like I am a study right now. I feel like I am a guinea pig right now. Yeah.
You know much about the demographics? Who is drinking them in particular?
Allison. I mean, people like, women over 30. You are over 30, right, Allison?
Well played, Ben.
A little bit, just a little. I mean,
okay.
A little
All right,
bit.
just want to make sure. Women over 30 are frankly the largest purchasers of this category. We're also seeing a huge bump in kind of people in their sunsetting years, looking for a better quality of life. Again,
is that right?
Away from alcohol, carrying them into their retirement homes. It's beautiful.
I would wager if there was accurate research, over 60 would be the best-selling demo.
Right.
The co-founder of this brand, Pharos, told me that they cannot sell enough to people over 60. And then to their company, easily the fastest growing demo is those.
So not college kids.
No. And I hate to make us all feel a little bit bad about ourselves, but pot's just not that cool anymore. It's like it's not novel to the younger generation. They have access to way cooler things. Like this is just our generation trying to make legal what we're all consuming anyways, just behind the scenes. And so we're in this really interesting period of time where everyone can use it. It should be legal, and there's hardly any stigma left, with the exception of this small segment of politicians that are in the way.
I think Total Wine top 10 liquor stores were big. They're in some restaurants around the country, which I think is a great sampling source. What's the one venue that will really change this industry, whether it be concert venues or sports stadiums? What will really change the game and make this a mainstream industry?
Man, it's hard to pick just one. I think it's all those things. I will say that the when I walked into a restaurant and saw it on a menu in Minnesota, I mean, it was like I was living in the future. And like it was a dream come true, truly, literally a vision come true of being able to sit there and just order a THC beverage along with my dinner. Where I think will benefit the most are sports stadiums for a couple of reasons. One, they make a ton of money off of concessions, and you sit at a baseball game long enough, you're going to want that pepperoni pizza, right? And in addition to that, what have these sports stadiums started doing? They've started building judiciary systems in the stadiums to handle, to create a drunk tank, essentially.
Wow.
That's a huge expense.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I've talked to some of these venue owners, and they're excited for this category to just remove the violence from the stadium. And, it's just such an interesting prospect. Movies. I mean, talk about another venue that makes a ton of money off of concessions. You sit in a 3-hour movie.
But won't I fall asleep? Seriously, Ben.
No. I mean, I don't know.
So these don't make you groggy in your experience?
You might. Look, I always say that THC just amplifies what you're feeling in that moment. If you've been ignoring your body and you're tired, THC is going to tell you to take a nap, right? But if you're feeling creative, or you're wanting to be creative, or you're wanting to focus on a story or a movie, it's going to get you so engaged and hyper focused on it that you're going to just be there in it. Most people love watching movies or listening to music on weed. And so, lean into
That's why I believe. No, I believe concert venues will be the true game changer, to answer my own question, because everyone's already consuming mainly marijuana at concerts versus alcohol. And I think that will be the explosion that makes it mainstream. I don't think it's been allowed to happen yet. These are all seltzers. Why aren't there wine? Why isn't there a tequila alternative? Why isn't there beer?
So there are, like, we've done it all, right? It just comes down to the fact that seltzers sell, right? They're still very popular, and at the end of the day, you want to sell high volume. You're talking about addressing still what's relatively a small marketplace, and so if you have too niche of a product in a small market, like, you're not going to sell that many units. It might be loved, you're just not going to sell that much. And we witnessed that on the regulated cannabis side, right? Like, if you're selling into a single state, you can't get too niche, or else you're just going to sell, 10 products, and that's not going to enough to support a business. In each one of those, I've tasted actually some really great non-alcoholic beers. I can't say the same for wines yet. I
they're
hear
not
they're
there.
out there.
They're
Wine
not
is
there.
tough. Like,
Yeah,
I
because
love
it
wine.
tastes like grape juice. Otherwise, I love wine too, and it tastes
Yeah.
like grape juice if you take out the booze. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't feel my face. Is that a problem?
That is fantastic.
Okay.
You look great.
Okay, great. Is that what's supposed to be happening? Because that's what's happening.
Probably an obvious answer. We like to ask every guest, what is their dose of sanity? How do you kind of get through the day, your divisiveness? Everyone has a different tool, and we like to offer them every day so you can have a minute for to marinate. I usually say meditation, but I had a different one today, Ben, and I drive a Jeep Wrangler, and I told Allison how much I love my Jeep Wrangler. And do you guys know the Jeep wave? So Jeep drivers, when we see another Jeep, we just wave.
That's adorable.
And I knew some people think it's so obnoxious, and I get that. But the Jeep wave this morning made me freaking happy, man.
Adorable. I like it.
Because when someone waves you, and I have no idea who that guy is, I'll never see him again. It honestly was enough to make my.
Oh my gosh, that's adorable. Can I just interject and say that I think I recently was on the receiving end of a Tesla wave, and it looked like this. I swear to God, I tried to wave. I was not driving Tesla. The guy that I was waving to, who is a neighbor, was driving the Tesla, and I waved. He goes like this. He goes, I was like,
was he driving a Cybertruck?
No.
Oh, because that would have made more sense.
Didn't recognize me. I hope.
This still doesn't warrant the bird.
That was it. But thank you.
It's the Doge effect.
It is. I was with my son. We literally looked at each other like, what the hell was that?
He's just having a bad morning.
He was having a bad morning. And we were so like.
Well, you do know that the thing now, people are flipping off it's more Cybertruck drivers. The Tesla has now become a divisive symbol. I'm not weighing in.
Oh, no, I agree. I was on the receiving end from a Tesla.
You should have offered him a beverage. It might have chilled him out a little bit.
I mean, we were so shocked. My son and I. Yes.
So do you have a dose of sanity?
A dose of sanity for us
today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I pretty religiously wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym. It's the time that I've found. I'm an entrepreneur. I have 2 young kids. It's the time I get to myself, and it's a way I stay healthy. And helps me sort out the day before the day even starts, and so I can get through the day with a clear head and make quick decisions.
That's great. That's a great one. I mean, it's really healthy.
Yeah. Well, he's not Ben Carson.
No, but
he's much better.
He's not a brain surgeon. In other words, he could be a brain surgeon.
Smarter, I think.
I'd like to think I could get further in a presidential race.
You probably could.
Yeah, I think you could. I think you could.
Larson is the CEO of Vertosa, and they are helping brands build their drinks from square one. How many brands are out there, and do they just come to you and you just take it from square one all the way to the shelf?
Look, I wish we could take more credit for it. We work with brilliant partners, a lot of them right there on your table. They do all the hard work. They do all the heavy lifting. Not to steal anything from Elon, but we are like tech support. We make sure that they have the active ingredients that they want in there, that they're reliable, and if they run into any problems with manufacturing or that kind of thing, we help it out. We make sure that they get onto the shelves. We also work with over 150 brands across North America, so we have a really good understanding of what's happening in the market. So if people start to ask, like, why are there so many seltzers? Like, well, I can tell you where the gaps are. And we see this a lot. Someone online the other day was asking, like, why are people only making sparkling beverages? Is that necessary with emulsions and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, no, actually go try Bolt iced tea. They make really delicious, flat iced teas, as they should be. And yeah, it's a wonderful brand. So shout out to Bolt.
It is a good drink. I love that one. And Teapot, I think, will come to the U.S. soon. That's made by Boston Beer.
Yep.
Amazing.
It is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are exploding. Where is the opening? You didn't answer that question. So someone asked you where the opening is. Where is it?
I think it is. There's largely in the flat category. So if you can
Flat.
come
Oh.
like a flat cocktail would be interesting. I know Flyers does their sparkling cocktails, but like you know, something that you can just pour over ice that is intended to be flat, I think is like a really interesting prospect.
Well, get on it, Ben. This has been great. You're a font of information for us. This is really fun. So we've established I like the taste. We think I like the feeling. I can't quite tell what I'm feeling.
I think you need another one. There's a raspberry.
That's Dave's answer to everything.
Yeah, well, you've loosened up over the last 30 minutes, so that's
Oh,
great.
good. Okay, great. Then this is wonderful.
Ben Larson,
Yeah.
Vertosa, thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining Sanity.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you.